All right, so I realized I didn't post the last short video journal a couple days ago, so this is going to be late, and I apologize. It's just how it's been. I am currently sitting outside of the UNLV campus in Las Vegas. My wife went on a work trip, and I decided to tag along. But because we had this trip coming up, I didn't have time to do the video journal on last Saturday like I planned. So here we are. We are recording from my car in the heat, but it's okay. I have so much to say today. And I've been kind of mulling it over in my brain since the last time I did a video journal, and since really everything kind of shook out over the last couple of days. So it's been a good week. It's been really good. Had kind of some family chaos happen that I don't want to get into really. And I rejected the job offer. So I've been talking about over the last couple of weeks how I got this job offer, and I was really excited. For those of you that don't know, I've worked at a startup for the last year and a half. I've built it from the ground up, and briefly for like 2 or 3 months, I was working on another one with a friend of mine that I was really excited about, but just couldn't pay the bills, so I had to drop it. And this job offer was for another startup that was already making money. So for people who don't know, typically startups for a while, you're surviving off of investment money. You really haven't built your customer base enough to make a profit yet. And so that's just what you have to do. And it doesn't mean you're not getting paid. Oftentimes, from what I've seen, startups do get paid. Sure, if you're what's called bootstrapping, which means you're not using any funding, you're just kind of doing the work yourself, you're not going to make money for a while. But for a lot of people, they rush out and they get funding immediately, and that's how you pay your bills. So I was excited about that because this startup was past that phase and they were starting to make revenue. They weren't quite there yet, and they were still relying on a lot of grants and investment money to keep moving, but they were starting to make revenue, which for me is a huge sign. For the startup I'm working at now, when we reach that point, I will be really excited. We're not there yet. I don't know when it's going to happen, but that's something I look forward to, because that means really that our idea worked and people are interested in buying it. Business lessons done. But I turned it down. And the reason was because where I live in Utah, there's a grant for startups. It's money from the state to help them get interns, find employees. But the problem is, and for people who have worked with public funds before, you'll understand this, you kind of have to play the game with them. And at least in Utah, they're always changing the rules. And really the expectations, depending on what they're trying to reach for. And one of the things that happens a lot is they try to target people with really low income, which I think is really noble. I think the number that they chose is not accurate for what it's like to live in Utah. I have a finance studying background, and I've done a lot of quality of life analysis over the past 2 or 3 years, and every number they've thrown forward is way too low. But that's beside the point. You have to be below their ideal income threshold to get the money for the grant, and that's what this job was depending on. And when I called the Utah authorities over this particular job, it became very clear very, very quickly that I was making too much money to get that grant offer, which meant I couldn't take the job because the internship I was applying for relied on that funding. So I called the CEO, and the CEO told me, oh, it's fine. Just go back, edit your application, and say you have a disability. which under the rules that Utah had laid out in their application, ADHD, which is something I struggle with, does count as a disability. I don't feel like I have one. And morally, I couldn't turn around and say, oh, I have a disability, when I feel like I'd be lying. And that's not the first time that's happened. I applied for a job with UBS where they asked the same question, and I did put yes, and I didn't feel good about it. I didn't sleep for a while, several days, over that decision, so I couldn't do it again. And now I have to live with the consequences of that, which is I had to turn the offer down. And I was sad about it, but in my soul, in my bones, I know it was the right choice to make. And it was tough. I actually went and I talked to my wife about it because I wasn't sure if I was making the right decision. And I guess there's a little extra lesson in there too, is if you have a partner or a family member, brother, sister, friend, someone who you care about really deeply and cares about you and your success, and you're concerned about something, take it to them. It's nice to have that extra pair of eyes so you're not just working with your own perspective. And that's what I wanted. And we both came to the conclusion that this is just not the right move. And I have to deal with the consequences of that because they did send me an offer letter, and I accepted the offer letter, but on the contingency that I was going to get this funding, and I didn't get it. So that is how it shook out. And it's unfortunate, but I'm glad that the decision went the way that it did. So I guess the lesson here, at least one of the key takeaways, let's do it this way. There was two key takeaways that I got from this whole week of experiences. One would be, don't sell yourself out because of whatever, financial benefit, social benefit. The costs are going to be way too high. And I know that's not what you hear a lot, especially from people, if you're like me, who like listening to the business and the hustle gurus saying you got to grind all the time and sacrifice everything for physical success. There's a cost to that, and a cost that they don't talk about, which really frustrates me because you would think people this successful and this financially successful would understand the opportunity cost problem. And sometimes those costs are just too high. Like this situation was with me. The cost of my morals, and really the idea of me saying I have a disability and then taking a possible job from someone who has it worse than I do, I couldn't do it. And to deal with the consequences, you have to deal with the consequences of those actions. Be okay accepting the fact that you're going to lose out on this sometimes. I lost out on the job, and looking back on it, I bet that could provide a lucrative career path to me. Talking to the CEO, he said, hey, we're considering for people who work for us in our internship program, giving them seed funding to go start their own company. And I lost out on that, but I think I made the right decision. And sometimes decisions in your life will have those kind of consequences, even if they're the right one. So be prepared for that and understand that that's the assignment that you've been given. Anyway, that's it for this week. Have a wonderful week. I am going to be out of town until next Monday, really. So I will see you all then.